Hello guys and welcome in a new video. In this video I'm going to talk about the effect that carbs have on hormones. I will start by talking about the effects of carbs on SHBG. Generally guys, when you have a spike in insulin, usually insulin lowers SHBG, okay? The macronutrients that stimulate insulin are mainly protein and carbs, okay? So they both have a positive effect on SHBG, okay? When I say positive effects, I mean that they lower SHBG in order for the free testosterone to be more available, okay? Because testosterone is usually bound to a protein, in this case to SHBG. SHBG holds the testosterone, not all the testosterone, but part of it. And as a consequence, your free testosterone will be less available. When there is a lower concentration of SHBG, your testosterone is more available, okay? So that is why you should lower SHBG in order to have a higher free testosterone. In this case, I found a study that said higher dietary GL and GI, GL meaning glycemic load and GI meaning glycemic index, both based on total and available carbohydrates, and a higher intake of sugar and sugar sweetened beverages were associated with lower circulating SHBG. What this study is saying is that higher glycemic load and glycemic index foods, so in this case carbohydrates like maybe rice for example, were associated with lower SHBG. It also talks about the sugar sweetened beverages, which I do not recommend. I prefer that you drink a Coca-Cola Zero or Fanta Zero instead of the version with sugar, but is saying that carbohydrates in general have a positive effect on SHBG. And in this case, I would suggest you to consume mainly organic forms of carbohydrates like fruits, honey. Next, guys, I want to also talk about the effect that carbs have on cortisol, okay? Cortisol, guys, is also important if we're talking about a balance, because cortisol should be high in the morning when you wake up, and it's very helpful in waking us up, but it's not good if we have chronic high cortisol, okay? Because what happens is that it will have negative consequences on your hormones and on your health, okay? So, in this case, also I found another study that said that a diet high in carbohydrates was shown to reduce cortisol and negative mood after stress. And carbohydrate loading was shown to increase performance and inhibit the typical cortisol increase in response to prolonged exercise. Also, guys, another study which is indirectly correlated with carbohydrate intakes is this, which says this review found an increase in resting and post-exercise cortisol on short-term low-carbohydrates diets less than 3 weeks. In addition, the results indicate resting cortisol levels return to baseline after 3 weeks. So, what happens is this. When you consume a low-carbohydrate diet, so you limit your carbohydrate intake, and this can be a ketogenic diet or maybe a slightly higher carbohydrate diet, meaning over 50, 60, 70 grams of carbohydrates. I do not know exactly, but it is a low carbohydrate diet. And it says that the beginning for 3 weeks, for around 3 weeks, the participants had higher cortisol, okay? But then they get used to it and the cortisol goes down, okay? In this case, possibly the low carbohydrate intake is like a stress for the body, and that's why they probably experienced an increase in cortisol. But what I suggest you is generally to consume carbs, okay? I'm not saying to eat a lot of carbs, but make it so that you know how many carbs you need during the day. If you're very active, of course, you should consume more carbs. If you're less active, maybe less. But if you're less active, maybe less. But on average, try to consume carbs and not to go on ketogenic diets or extremely low carbohydrate diets. Sometimes doing some ketogenic diet may be good if you want to do like a detox from carbs. For example, if for a week you have been eating a super high amount of carbs, including processed foods and all these kind of foods, then as a consequence, maybe a lower carb diet or ketogenic diet could be helpful, okay? You will lose a lot of water and you will cycle the carbs. But on average, in my opinion, A ketogenic diet should not be the average diet that you should follow, okay? So getting back to the carbohydrates, I would also suggest you to eat carbs because if you are an athlete, they replenish the glycogen stores after you train. So carbohydrates are very important. Now I mentioned the two hormones, in this case, the one hormone, cortisol, and the SHBG. But generally speaking, carbohydrates have different functions, okay? Maybe I will talk about their functions in another video. But as the final note, I want to give you an advice on what carbs you should include in your diet. I would say that you should mainly consume natural sources of carbohydrates like fruit, honey, milk, which has not that high number of carbohydrates, but if you drink a lot of milk, it has a moderate amount of carbs. Then, guys, what you can also eat is grains if you tolerate them, and these are, in my opinion, the foods that you should mainly consume as a source of carbs. Okay, so for this video, it's all. I will leave a link of my website in the description, so if you want to contact me, you can find the links there. And if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.